I'm going to say where we always start when we're talking about designing learning experiences is starting with the learner. And I usually just say start with the learner, but for this audience, I know I need to say start with the human learner. And what do we know about the human learner? There's an incredible diversity of the learner, and we need to make sure that the learner voice and equity are central to the design of whatever environments we're doing. Now, not just demographic diversity, but also there's diversity in the learner's background knowledge, their relevant skills, their future goals, and the attributions, how they make sense of or explain the learning experience they're engaged with. So the second thing I want to talk about, since we're talking about opportunities, is the context. Most of the talk today has been about using ML to design education in more formal and traditional education. The context I'm working in currently, although that's not the context I've always worked in, is workforce. And so that provides some special challenges. At Amazon, which is where I am, they're hiring people at an incredible clip at about 350 people a day. So you have 350 people a day that need to be upskilled in the culture, in their job skills rapidly. There's also incredible fluidity within the organization. People are encouraged to work on projects and then move teams and work on other projects that they're passionate about and that are meeting the needs of customers. So there's an incredible need to continuously upskill and rebuild one's skills. And there's also all the innovation. So skills and knowledge that people didn't even know were needed are being developed all the time. And not to mention the scale and the distributed and global footprint. So that brings us to then the technology. So the technology, when I was back in academia, and I do lots of talk about the power of the technology to support teaching and learning, these were the things people were focused on. And this one, the first one, really a lot now because of COVID. Access and convenience. If the student has a computer or a phone or a pad, they can learn anytime, any place. But also the power of simulation, that we can construct learning experiences, authentic learning experiences that are more difficult to construct in a classroom. And then also the final thing is connection, that with the computer, you can connect your learners to the world, to other experts, to everything, to each other. But I always maintained, since I started the founding idea behind the Open Learning Initiative back in 2002 at Carnegie Mellon, was that the real power of the technology, while those things were also important, was that just like we do in any web-based environment, we push the interface to the learner and observe the learner in the interface. And when we observe the learner in the interface, what that means is we can construct activities, we can construct learning environments and collect their interaction level data with those environments and model those data and drive very powerful feedback loops to the human actors in the system. And those human actors are obviously learners, first and foremost, instructors or mentors, learning designers, and then, my favorite group, learning researchers. So my mission at Amazon is to deliver an effective learning system to all Amazon employees. So how do I do that? Well, we have to know what the employee's current knowledge and capabilities are. We have to know what their desired knowledge and capabilities are. And then we have to know what their learning experiences are that are going to help them move from their current state to their desired state. So how do we find this out? How do we know what their current knowledge and capabilities are? How do we know what knowledge and capabilities they need? And then how do we know which learning experiences out of all the things that are available to them might be the best thing to recommend to them at this point in time to help them move from their current state to their desired state? And that's where the big ML problems are. One of them is, how do we know what the learner's current state is? We need to observe them and measure them engaging with the learning experiences. And then that allows us to collect that learning data and deliver those feedback loops to the other actors in the system. So we're not just doing this completely empirically grounded. It is very much a commitment to combining certain sciences of human learning with this empirical approach. So we very much do a collaborative blended approach. We bring in knowledge from neuroscience, knowledge from cognitive science, knowledge from social psychological science, obviously measurement science, and then of course, machine learning and data science. So so you might ask, what kinds of things do we do? Well, for the learners, what we do is we have a whole bunch of learning designers all over Amazon who are constructing learning experiences, but we instrument those learning experiences to collect data from the learner's interactions. And then we can use those data from those interactions to estimate their current state relative to their desired state, and then give them feedback, both in the immediate task, but also give them feedback on what other kinds of learning experiences, recommend other learning experiences that might support them. We give feedback to the learning designers to give them insight into how well the activities are performing against supporting people to achieve the outcomes they've designed those things to achieve, and make recommendations about where they could change their assets to better meet different population needs. To instructors or mentors, we give them insight into where the people that they're helping support to learn, where they are in that learning trajectory, so they can use their time together most effectively. And then to learning researchers, I found, as always, Ken's comments very instructive, that while we have a learning science, it's still very new in the sense of we can still discover so much more about how people learn and how better to teach all of these different capabilities and knowledge. So right before we started this, Neil, who I've known for a while, was asking me, why did I leave academia full-time to work at Amazon? And it has everything to, is it just the money? No, although yes, the money is better. The real reason is it's an amazing research environment. As my colleague, Emma Brunskill, former colleague Emma Brunskill, who you'll hear from later today, said to me once, Candace, what you have there is you have a context where you have both a labor market and a university. You are both a labor market and a university. And what that means is we can know and project out what knowledge and capabilities are needed now or going to be needed into the not too distant future. And then we also then can support and develop learning experiences to support people as they fluidly move across the organization to move from current roles to the new desired roles. And the other piece is we have, I have 1 million research subjects, I think of it that way, where it's very much sits at that intersection of Pasteur's quadrant, where we're trying to build learning experiences that truly improve and support people to build knowledge and capabilities, but also at the same time, trying to do a bunch of experimentation to better understand fundamentally how human learning works, so that we can make design recommendations and principles that will guide not just our designs, but make those available to the world. So it truly is an opportunity for learning engineering. If you think of mechanical engineering as being reliant on physics, then learning engineering is very reliant on the learning sciences, with the additional benefit of providing that feedback loop into the science that oftentimes mechanical engineers don't necessarily feed back into physics. We don't learn new things about physics necessarily from mechanical engineering, but we learn a lot about the fundamental principles of human learning from designing and iterating and continuously improving learning environments. The other thing that these new technologies make available is they allow practitioners to change their role from being just people putting into practice what the science is telling us to actually actively engaging in the science. If you think about every time you design something, you are essentially conducting you're testing a hypothesis that you think that if you do this thing, the learner will improve from this space to this space. And we can collect the data and create a big corpus of information of all those little events to better understand learning. So this is the model that we go for, is that we create better learning activities, interactions, which allow us to learn, create better learning data and create better models, which lead to better insights, which allow us to build better learner experiences, which then create better learning activity interactions. And we have this virtuous cycle that leads to efficient and effective and scalable capability development. So I guess I will go to, one other thing I do want to say is that one of the other big areas, as we are seeing that more and more machines are able to make good decisions because they have access to so much complex data, that there's, I think, another question, particularly in the education and learning space, is how do you use the decision-making or the information analytic capabilities of the machine to support human decision-making? And when do you have the humans actually make those decisions? So, because we're not just trying to build knowledge and capabilities into entities that are not human. You know, we also want to continuously be supporting humans to develop a sense of agency and authority. And so balancing, how do you build these systems that both optimize decision-making, but also continue to put humans in the role of the agent of those decisions, is another interface place that I think is a really important area for exploration. So with that, I will stop and take any questions.
Excellent. And I encourage people to actually drop stuff in the chat, as I've been encouraging everyone actually all day. But I have a question for you, Candace. So you actually have this amazing access to actually these Amazon employees that are doing these learning activities. What % of the time actually are you able to track what they're doing? Like for your average software engineer working there, you don't have access to like every piece of code they're ever writing. It's only when you specifically construct actually learning environments that they participate in, or do you actually have access to that, to everything everyone's doing?
Well, that varies.
Okay.
Obviously, if we're focusing, but the goal is learning in the flow of work. So that, for example, I'll take your software development engineer example. If I'm a software development engineer, I'm committing code all the time, which is accessible. And so our models could pick up that perhaps you're struggling as a software engineer with recursion. That in the last few bits of code, we'd see that you probably should have done a recursion algorithm there and you didn't. So there's an opportunity there to support that individual and say, seems like you might be struggling with recursion, and offer that person a learning support activity, either to recognize when recursion would be appropriate, or to actually how to build it, how to create it. And then, so those kinds of activities can be delivered, and then ongoing, you can see, did that person's behavior actually change? And we can do that with things that are obvious, like software engineering or picking and packing. But you can also do that if you have other mechanisms of observing behavior in the workplace, even around soft skills, like how effective is this person at hiring, at interviewing and hiring people. As long as you can define what those knowledge and capabilities are, then we can create mechanisms to support people to build those knowledge and capabilities, and then evaluate to what extent do they need additional support.
Candace, thank you so much. This is so great. Actually, I just want to actually thank you for that. Seems like actually it's such a cool opportunity. I should go work at Amazon and forget about these 500,000 kids we have.
Partnerships.
Excellent. All right.
I'm still connected to my universities, and so partnerships. I have had interns, PhD interns, come do work and write papers out of it So absolutely.
I see you are continuing to be research active, actually, which I wouldn't have guessed necessarily that would happen, but I actually see that happening.